What are some of the challenges that are unique to working at home all day with your spouse, with your kid running above you? What are some of the things that you were working at this construction company? You've been in the Marine Corps. What's different about this than those other experiences?
I would say one of the big ones is that you don't have complete control over everything. And a lot of times, not that you always have complete control, but you have a lot more control over the narrative and what's going to happen throughout the day than when life is happening around where you're working. There's a lot more variables there. I would say it's the biggest difference that you run into, at least for myself, especially when we say in the Marine Corps, I like high discipline stuff. Like I thrive in that environment. And when you have a 5-year-old running around, there can be some lack of discipline just as the nature of the beast. And that mixed with where you work can create some chaos sometimes. And you got to be willing to embrace it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Emotional Men podcast, where we're interviewing our business owners, CEOs, and business leaders on how to balance work and family life. Today, I'm really excited to have Ron Nussbaum with us today. He is the CEO and founder of Nuttnest, which is a platform that contractors can use to transform their customer service. And so welcome to the show, Ron.
Hey, it is great to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Ron, if you wouldn't mind talking with our audience a little bit about what your company is, what you do, your role in the company, and then we'll switch tracks a little and talk about your family life, and then we'll talk about how those two kind of interplay and balance with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent just over a decade in residential construction after being in the Marine Corps, and communication breakdowns was the number one customer complaint. I've dealt with a few escalated customers, and that's what led me to develop the software. So we're a customer communication platform designed for the residential construction industry. We get all your communication in one place. So think of no more emails, no more text messages, no more phone calls. We get it all in one place, pictures, messages, documents, and then we organize it by project. And where the magic really happens is we make sure that your homeowner, that customer, is always talking to the right person at the company. So if it's a scheduling question, they're talking to the person that's in charge of that schedule. And it's really super basic software that serves a niche in the construction industry that I was that at one point in time. And then I developed software for it. And here we are now. It took me a while to get to where I'm at. But I'm partnered with Grant Cardone and 10X Incubator, as well as Project 10K, Jared Yellen, and it's been an awesome journey. And now my mission is to help 5 million people within residential construction with communication.
That's amazing. I can imagine that solves a massive problem for a lot of contractors and just people who want their homes. We've built a couple of homes ourselves. We subcontracted out, but nightmares sometimes.
I love how you use the terminology run-ins. Like when we start talking about what was our experience like with contractors and builders and home service providers, it's never the actual project, the work, the guys. It's always that communication piece. And we start throwing around terminology like nightmares, a mess, run-ins. It's just funny. I'm around it all the time. So it's just, to me, I love how people talk about that interaction and what was that like, especially from the customer perspective as yourself.
Yeah. Whenever we look at where there's a lot of friction, interactions, it's always around communication, whether it's like how we see the world or, what we think we're communicating, what the contractor thinks that we're communicating, and then just start missing each other in the dark. So how does Nuttnest help solve that problem? Other you said it's connecting you to the right person at the right time. How does it solve I think I'm saying this and they understand what I think they're saying, and I'm understanding what I think they're trying to communicate to me? How does Nuttnest really solve that problem?
Yeah, so by getting it all in one place, we're empowering that homeowner to reach out and ask questions. One thing I found was a lot of times homeowners wouldn't ask questions because 95% of the time, the only number they have is that sales rep's number, or say that general contractor that's running the company. That's the point of contact they have. But that person can't answer any of their questions once the project gets up and going, or as once that sale happens, it's just not the person to talk to. And that's one of the flaws in how the industry kind of does things, is because that's now your point of contact, but they can't answer the question. So what we find is homeowners won't ask questions that they would ask if they knew they were talking to the right person. So by opening those doors, getting that homeowner in a position to where now they know they're talking to that project manager, they're talking to that scheduling person or that service person, whatever that problem is, that homeowner is now more open to talk about it and start to have these questions that typically the 35% of inefficiencies on a job site are driven from communication breakdowns. And a lot of that we could proactively solve if we opened up those communications before the project even started. Because it's homeowners waiting till somebody comes out to their house to ask questions about stuff that majorly affects the project that should have been discussed months prior, but there's just no good way to do that until now with Nuttnest.
So how do you go about building this company? How did you recognize the need? And how did that go from, oh, seeing a problem to actually starting a company?
Yeah. So, like I said, in 2011, I got out of the Marine Corps and I found myself in residential construction. And during that time, I dealt with some escalated customers. And I was really diving into why do we have escalating customers? Because I didn't want to deal with them. It wasn't what I wanted my weekends or my nights to be. I was really tired of getting my butt chewed for stuff I had zero to do with. I was just the top of the totem pole. So I'm the one that I deal with all these emotions of the customers. And one night I'm laying in bed and it just hit me. I was like, if I had software that helped me direct my communication, got it all in one place, and then I had a record of all of it, so I knew what was being said from every party and I could track that, that would change my life. And I got up, I put together this, I call it a haphazard at best PowerPoint presentation because I'm a non-technical software. I own a software company, and there's people out there that would be amazed that we're having this Zoom conversation. But that I was like, this is what fixed it. So I started out on this journey. And for a couple of years, I heard a lot of times is, hey, great idea, but you're probably not the guy. And I was like, that's BS. I am the guy. Like, I'm the guy with the problem. What do you mean? And it took me 2021. I got accepted into the 10X incubator, which there was over 23,000 applicants. I'm one of less than 100 companies they moved forward with and got accepted. I met Jared Yellen from Project 10K, who he looked at me and said, Ron, you are the guy. The company is what the company is, but you're the guy to do this. So let's make this happen. That's when Nuttnest officially became into realms in 2021. I finally got the right people on the bus that were like, hey, let's go build this. It took us a year to get it to where it's at now. And just in January, we went live throughout the United States, and we have contractors, builders, home remodelers, plumbers, electrician, home, you name it. We have them on there using them. We're about 100, just over 100 at probably time of listening to this, but probably even more over 100 contractors and builders on the platform.
That's incredible. So it's right on the inflection point of it really just taking off.
Yeah, we're working on it. We're just trying to figure out what does it look. We're go to market. We're a startup. It's like, how do we get our product in the end user's hands? So that's what I focus on day in, day out. We've completely bootstrapped this myself. We're not backed by Silicon Valley. We don't have $10 million in funding. This is something that we said we were going to build. We built it. We bootstrapped it. Now we're taking it to the market and working on becoming cash flow positive, because that's what will continue to help us grow the business and continue to have the impact that we want to have.
Wow. So while you're doing this, tell me a little bit about your family life. You have this baby, right? That you've birthed. You're gonna start helping it grow. And tell me about your family life.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm married. We'll be married this year. Will be 15 years. I have a 4-year-old son that will be 5 in about 10 days at this point in time. So I'm pretty much a 5-year-old. And we actually just recently, a year ago, we moved across the country as well. So we have done all kinds of interesting stuff in the last couple of years. completely pivoted my work environment and what that looks like. And along with that came family decisions that could be made. When you walk away from brick and mortar and you can really choose where you do what you do, there's been a lot of great family decisions and discussions that have happened in the last 18 months.
Yeah. Talk to me about some of those discussions that, for instance, what was the discussion when you initially approached your wife about starting this company? What did that look like?
That was something we had been working on and working towards for a couple years before it became an actual feasible thing. And the way it came about, when you get guys like Grant Cardone and Jared Yellen excited about what you're doing and you're flying down to Miami to spend time with them and get everything situated, it's an exciting thing. Like I had been grinding it out, and that was just actually the start of the grind. Like that moment in time was really just the start of everything, but we were ready for that. We were excited. My wife was excited. We knew like this is where we were headed. We didn't know everything that would unfold because of it, but we knew that's the direction we wanted to go.
Wow. Now, tell me about your wife's situation. Is she working right now? Is she at home?
Yeah, it's Stephanie, and she stays at home, has since she was an esthetician for just over 15 years. When we had our son, that was COVID happened, and it was just made sense. That's not what she wanted to do, and she wanted to be at home, and that's what she still does. We bought and sold a cleaning company in the middle of that, and we've done some fun stuff, not fun stuff, and everything in between. But she's an amazing mom and an amazing woman that supports me in what I do. It is that the fan base that's needed to keep doing what I'm doing every day.
And tell me about your soon-to-be 5-year-old son. What's his name and what's he like?
Cash, and he is a crazy little man. He is all boy. Every sport he's ready to go Division 1 in, if you would talk to him about it. And he has the image to go with it all in his mind and energy for days, just ready to rock and roll. Absolutely loves the outdoors, doesn't just want to sit around. He has a tablet, and he would put that tablet down in a heartbeat to go outside and do some stuff. So I must be doing something right there. I don't know exactly what it is. He absolutely loves life and loves adventure and getting after it. And he's completely fearless, and it's amazing to watch.
Oh, yeah. That's incredible. So talk to me a little bit about what does your day look like right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll get down into nitty gritty. I get up, I work out every day. And then from
What
there,
time are
that
you what time are you waking up?
I get up at 6:45, and I used to be more of a morning person than I am now. I just don't have to be. So I don't choose to be, I guess. The
Yeah.
gym opens at 7:30, and that works for me. So I get up in time to be able to go to the gym. Get to the gym, work out for 45 minutes, about an hour, depending. I'm typically on a 75 hard cycle. I'm not on one right now at this moment, but I go to Utah this week. I get back on Sunday. Monday, I'm starting a 30-day phase 1 of 75 hard. So that's kind of part of my life at this point in time, is the discipline and everything that comes with that. So get up at 6:45, go to the gym. My wife goes with me. And if we're not going to the gym, a lot of times we'll work out here, go for a walk. I try to go to the gym 6 days a week. That's what they're open. And then walk in the afternoons. My day consists of typically to 9:30 to 10 is when my day really starts from a work perspective. I get back, I have breakfast, I hang out a little bit with Cash and my wife, and then take my vitamins, do all of that kind of stuff. And then I head down into my office, and my day is meetings. Like everything I do is virtual for the most part. So I do a lot of virtual meetings, Zoom meetings. I have a podcast, so I record episodes of that, do editing, do that kind of stuff. I do pretty much everything for everything. So the business, all of that is all stems through my office that I'm standing in right now having this conversation with you. Is right here's where the magic happens. I've spent a lot of time in the last 8 months working through partnerships and having those meetings and having an understanding and finding alignment. I like to say I really do a lot of facilitating, because that is just what I do. I like connecting people and creating an environment where people can really win and do amazing things. So that's how my days go. Like I just try to do that. And I dop up and down upstairs. I hear my son playing all day long. If he's in the house, I can hear him above me. And if he's outside, I can hear him outside as well, along with my wife. And I get to see them pretty much all day, every day as I'm moving
Yeah.
around.
What's that like? Do you ever experience any points of friction throughout the day, working at home with the kids or in the morning? Because I guess Cash isn't going to school yet, right?
No, he'll start school next year, and he's super excited about that. He can't wait to ride that school bus and go to school.
Wow.
Yeah, he's all about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're going to have friction. I've been married for almost 15 years. Like anybody that's been married for any amount of time understands there's an ebb and flow to stuff, how days work and how stuff can be off. We all have off days, we have on days, and then when you get put in an environment where there's really not a lot of separation between that, most people go to work. When you're all around it, yeah, it's just a different dynamic to work through. I consider myself an oddball in the fact, like, I would just rather spend time with my wife. I've done a lot of traveling for work that was by myself, and I would just rather have her go with me. I've had her go on work trips. We were just in Phoenix not that long ago. She's not able to come to Utah this week with me, but I would just prefer her to come and spend time with me because there's so much stuff that happens, those experiences, even if it's work related. I just feel better with her there by my side. And I have that here all the time, but that it can come with friction because a lot of people get that breathing time away when you go to work. And it's not necessarily something I've ever really needed, but there's stuff that you have to work through. Anything that you're doing will always create some kind of friction in your life. If you're doing something that's impactful and meaningful and you're trying to really move the ball and change an outcome, there will always be friction there. So I just think that's part of life.
Yeah.
At least it's part of my life.
I don't think you're going to talk with any kind of parent, business owner out there who hasn't experienced any kind of friction. That's just not real. And so many of our listeners on this podcast are experiencing challenges. That's one of the beautiful things about this podcast. It just helps everyone hear past the storefront of social media. You realize they're not alone in facing these challenges. What are some of the challenges that are unique to working at home all day with your spouse, with your kid running above you? What are some of the things that you were working at this construction company? You've been in the Marine Corps. What's different about this than those other experiences?
I would say one of the big ones is that you don't have complete control over everything. And a lot of times, not that you always have complete control, but you have a lot more control over the narrative and what's going to happen throughout the day than when life is happening around where you're working. There's a lot more variables there. I would say it's the biggest difference that you run into, at least for myself, especially when we say in the Marine Corps, I like high discipline stuff. Like I thrive in that environment. And when you have a 5-year-old running around, there can be some lack of discipline just as the nature of the beast. And that mixed with where you work can create some chaos sometimes. And you got to be willing to embrace it. I try to do a better job of it and try to work through this. And you got to have that open dialogue. Like my wife understands, like when there's certain times when like I need quiet and we need stuff has to be happening. But then there's certain times where let's jump in the golf cart and go get ice cream at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because we've created a lifestyle where we can do stuff like that. So I think you have both sides of it. And if you have to choose which side you want to dwell on, and I always choose to look at the positives because there's negatives with everything and there's positives with everything. And as long as you focus on the positives and you're happy about what you're doing, like that's what we should focus on.
Can you share a specific scenario or circumstance where you've had that chance to look at the negative and the positive and you decided to look at the positive instead?
Anybody out there has kids or ever had kids, You guys understand what meltdowns are like. You getting ready to go in a meeting that could be a completely life-changing meeting, and 6 minutes beforehand, you're dealing with a 4-year-old that's completely melting down. The positive is that you're there. To me, for my wife, it might have been more of a negative that I was there, but you have the opportunity to work through this and then go have your impact instead of being an hour away at work and you don't even realize what's going on, or you don't even realize what, say, the wife is going through. Like, you get a first order perspective at that of exactly what's happening in your house all the time. And I think you have to look at the positive of that.
What's something that's been surprising for you? Anything that's surprised you being home?
I love the discipline. I think, like, we as people, we spend so much time running from being disciplined, but it's really where we thrive. And I spent a lot of time trying to not be disciplined, but when when I really zero in on myself, like, that is where I thrive. And I've been able to become more disciplined at home because in my own control here than before. But I don't have any governing body. I don't have anything saying I need to be that way. But now I'm choosing it because I understand that is what will create the results that I want to have.
How does that balance out with, say, a 4-year-old?
That's a complete lack of discipline there. I think that's what keeps it fun. That's what allows you to continue. I've had so many great, just like, I spent a lot of time in leadership and management and dealing with people and trying to learn to be the best Ron that I can possibly be. And I would have been a lot better of a Ron if I would have had kids a long time ago.
Why do you say
Because
that?
because learning how to parent is just like learning to be a great leader in my mind. You have to be working at it. You have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to try to be great at it. And the outcome's going to be what the outcome is. Like, that's going to be the results. At the end of the day, it won't be something that could just not be measured. So it really does matter. And it matters how we show up and what we do, but none of us are perfect. We have to understand that. And I just look at it that way. I would become the greatest version of myself because of my son and how I work through all of this and how I apply it to the rest of my life.
With the demands of starting your own company, being the founder, you have a lot resting on your shoulders. How do you balance that with wanting to be a good leader for your family? Do you see there's a balance? Is it more of an integration? Where do you find the boundaries?
This is something that I went back and forth on with work-life balance, integration, all these terms everybody uses for everything. I think you have your family, you have your business, or you have your job, whatever that is, however that looks for you, you have to figure out how you can be you in every one of those situations and show up. I think I'm an anomaly. I like to spend time with my wife. Not that I say that, that's a wrong way to say that, but I'll do things that, like, if I go golfing, I would rather go golfing with her than go with some other guys. That's an anomaly, but I just always want to show up and just always be the best Ron that I can be. And that's not always going to happen for being a founder, being a CEO, being a husband, being a father. Like, that's not always going to work out, but we have to be able to learn from that. But I don't necessarily strive for balance and I don't strive for integration. I strive to just be the best I can be with whoever I'm with. And what exactly am I doing? Because that's what I owe myself. That's what I owe my family. That's what I owe my company, my partners, anybody out there that's rooting for me or behind me and what I'm doing. I owe that to them. To be the best I am every time I show up. Every time I turn my computer on, or I open a book with my son, or I go out to dinner with my wife, I owe them me being the best I possibly can and being present to what's happening.
How do you choose when to be present?
I think it's pretty easy. To me, like technology and everything, it's so amazing. I love everything about it, but it's very easy to just forget too. Leave your phone at home. Don't take it somewhere. Don't take it to dinner. Don't what I don't to me, like that's my wife has her phone with her if we need pictures and stuff. Like I don't need my phone because what will end up happening is that there'll be an email, there'll be a message. Like it don't matter in the moment. That's not me being the best for my family who I'm currently with. That's me being sucky for my family and my business because I'm not going to be able to give my best answer because I'm thinking about trying to be present with where I'm at. If I don't feel like I can turn it off, I'll just leave the phone at home. And then you have to turn it off and you can't worry about it because the chances of the whole thing burning down, it's going to eventually happen anyhow. Here's what I say is I live in a world where I'm constantly burning the ship down, but keeping it from sinking. Like that's just how that works. I run a startup. I have a 5-year-old son. Like the ship is constantly burning to the ground, but you just keep it from sinking. And then it can be always rebuilt. Like what was on fire gets put out and you rebuild that. You just can't let the ship sink. Because once the ship sinks, that's where you can't fix it. And that's how I go about this. So if I leave my phone at home for a day, chances of the ship sinking, 0. Maybe something catching on fire, but I can fix that. I'm not going to worry about that because that's not going to ruin everything. That's how I look at it. I'm just, like I said, I'm just out here trying to not sink the ship.
I absolutely love that analogy. A lot of times I see on the forums or the different comment threads on social media, Instagram, talking about this business owner burnout, grinding, burning the candle at both ends. And you seem like you have a really good ability to kind of shut off or not worry. So talk to me about how you seem pretty willing to let the ship burn, but you're confident you can fix it. So kind of tell me about that mentality and like how do you not worry or how do you minimize your worries as a
I,
business owner and father?
I think there's all kinds of shit to worry about. And you just have to pick and choose at the end of the day. Like I'm worried about my family and my son and how is the environment where he becomes a man? What does that look like? And I'm worried about what the end outcome of Nuttnest is and where we're headed. What does that mature company look like? And what does that do for myself and my family and everybody that uses our product? I guess I keep a real long-term view on everything in my life. Everything is a long-term play. And if we would stop looking at stuff as what's going to change in the next 30 days or the next week or the next year, and we start thinking about what are the results of consistently doing this for the next 3 to 5 years, where does that get us? What does that look like? Jared Yellen says this amazingly is that all of this stuff is just part of our story. And most of it's not even going to be a chapter. A lot of it's going to be a sentence. Some stuff's going to happen and it'll be a chapter. It'll be a paragraph. But most stuff that everybody frets about and gets worked up about is like a comma or a period. Like it doesn't really affect the overall book of what our life would be. So if we get stressed out about that stuff and we let it completely dictate what the next chapters are, it changes the direction of the book. And I don't want that. I want to understand that this is where I'm going. There's going to be a lot of wins. There's going to be a lot of losses along the way. And that's just life.
Where do you suppose that you learned that for the first time? Can you think of a moment where that you really felt yourself living that? Because it's one thing to say that. Can you share an experience where you feel like you actually lived that?
Bro, I've been there. I've worked 100 hours a week. I gave it all. I've been unhealthy. I've been drinking, smoking, eating bad, eating, just like not taking care of myself. But on the outside, it would appear like everything is just fantastic. Great job, great everything. But I was completely unhappy. And then I started figuring out like if I take care of my body, if I do this kind of stuff, you feel better, then you start to realize there's better ways to do things. And you're always preparing yourself. And then sometimes everything gets ripped out or ripped just away from you. When we decided to go full time into Nuttnest, that wasn't something that was just my decision. That was something that was, hey, here's what it is. If you want to do that, you're going to have to just go do that. And it's going to be, this is done. And I chose to do what I thought was best for my family and my future and where my loyalties lied. And to me, like you start to develop this stuff and you can't be afraid of it. I think as men, we can be afraid to not necessarily, it's not being weak, but it's just understanding that you can always change and evolve. And it's okay to not have it all figured out. Like I would never claim here that I have it all figured out. I think a lot of times, like my naiveness can be more of a strength than it is a weakness because I'll do things other people won't because I'm not afraid to do it because some people would just say I'm that stupid. But yeah, I think just life, if you let it, will evolve you into the man that you're supposed to be. And you do personality tests and you start to understand who you are. And we have to lean into that. And we just have to be the man we were meant to be. Being a man and being who you are and true to yourself matters. And it probably matters more right now in time than any other time in history. And that's what we have to do. And it all starts with having an understanding of who you are. I remember when I took my first DISC assessment, and I was like, I'm a high D, like 96 high D personality, like insane. I've never met anybody. If anybody out there has a higher DISC than a 96 on a D, reach out to me because I would love to have a conversation with you because I've never met anybody higher. And I read it for the first time. I was like, this is awesome. This is an awesome dude right here. Here's what we need to do. My wife needs to read this because then she'll understand. She'll understand why I am how I am. That's backwards. I needed to read it and understand who I was and how I did things and start to have so like it's about understanding other people. It's not necessarily about other people understanding you. When we start doing that, we start understanding ourselves, we understand everybody around us, and we can just be better and we can continue to grow. And this stuff just doesn't seem crazy. Like I can't just say this is a moment where this is how I felt. I can just say over time, I have worked at being the best I possibly can. And here we are now.
There's a lot of the people who are listening to this show, they may be in that moment where they're working 100 hours a week. Their health is suffering. They're emotionally, mentally burnt out. They don't know how to turn it out. They feel like they're locked in. They have to provide for their families, or you're going to miss that opportunity if they stop working as much. But they also feel like they're just grinding away. What kind of helped you get out of that place?
I would say do 75 hard. If you don't know what 75 hard is, just Google it. It's completely free. It's Andy Frisella's mentor program. And it's all about mentally doing stuff for 75 days. And it's a life changer. It would truly change your life.
75 hard. I'll put a link to that in the show notes for everyone. If you could share with the working parents out there who are stressed about their kids, stressed about their relationships, stressed about their companies, if you could give yourself some advice, let's say you're 10 years from now, what would yourself 10 years from now, what's some advice you give yourself for today?
That the wait was worth it. And when I use that in two different terminologies is not just the wait, but the wait. Because there's a lot of weight that we carry and there's a long wait to get to places. And it's just part of it. Like I have just come to the conclusion like that it's just part of it. We want to run from it. We want to act like it's not natural, but when you're doing stuff that's disrupted, that's going to create an impact, that's out of the norm, that's going to better lives, it's hard. And life is hard. If you're just don't want to skate on by and just do, the whatever. If you're working 100 hours a week right now and grinding it out because you want to create a better outcome for yourself, your family, your job, your business, whatever it is you're doing, that weight is real. And it's real because you've created it and now you have to carry it. Like I created this, so now I have to carry it. There's nothing that any of us didn't create. We just can't all of a sudden be like, this is too much, because that's when we fail. That is when it doesn't come to fruition. That's when for 10 years from now, I would tell myself then, you should have just never started. But that's not the case because I'm not going to quit because I set down this journey. I understood the moment we get married, the moment we decide to have kids, the moment we decide to start a company, or the moment we decide to go to work somewhere, we chose that hard. We chose the weight. So it's on us to carry it and figure out how we can carry it. Because you can carry weight. I was a grunt in the Marine Corps. So I carried a lot of weight and walked a lot of miles. And there's better ways to carry it than others. You have to figure out what's the best way for you to be able to carry that weight. So 10 years from now, I'm going to tell myself it was worth all the blood, sweat, and tears, and it was worth the wait.
10 years from now, I want to talk with you. We can see what.
Let's do it. Put it on my calendar.
Can't wait to see your family. Your cash is going to be 14, turning 15.
Oh man, he'll be like wanting to drive a car. He wants to drive a car now. He probably will be driving a car. I have to bail him out of jail.
It's worth the wait. I love that. Ron, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I'm a man who really enjoys spending time with my wife. I don't go out with the boys very much. If I'm going to do something fun, I want to sit down and do it with my wife. So I feel you there. I love that.
Awesome. I love
Thank
it.
you so much for opening up and just being vulnerable and sharing what you're going through and just the lessons you've learned. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, man. It has been fantastic being here today.
Yeah. Okay. Everyone, that's Ron Nussbaum, CEO, founder of Nuttnest, and an incredible father by the sounds of it. So thank you, everyone. And we will see you again on the next show.